This is a vigil that's happening for the Ayatollah, where people that are part of this are calling him a martyr and praising him for standing up against Zionism and, quote, the criminal American regime. But then you have on the other side here, police have put up barricades, and you have a counter-protest that has shown up. The Ayatollah was killed by U.S. forces March 1st, setting off the start of the war in Iran. One of the organizers of this vigil, the New York City Anti-Repression Group, says that he defended the dignity of the Iranian people. And now this is in stark contrast to celebrations that we have seen across the country by Iranian Americans who say his assassination signifies freedom for the people of Iran. Now,
these were people holding a vigil for the late Ayatollah Khomeini. There is a specific kind of suicidal empathy that exists in the West right now. It's a specialized brand of blindness where people make excuses for the Islamic Republic of Iran under the guise of nuance, or maybe just outright hatred for the United States and the West that they've been taught at their public schools and universities. But let's be very clear. There is no nuance in a hangman's noose. If you want to know what the enemies of freedom look like, look at the systematic destruction of the Iranian people. We aren't just talking about a strict government. We are talking about a regime that turned the state-sanctioned rape of young women into a theological requirement. Because, nothing says moral high ground like religiously mandated gang rape to keep virgins out of paradise. Classy. It's basically the ultimate spiritual gaslighting, violating someone on earth in order to save them from the salvation you don't want them to attain. Truly God's work, right? Hey guys, as we go through this, just give this video a thumb up. It costs you $0 for the algorithm. Thumb it up and leave a comment with your thoughts. I'm very curious what you guys think, because I want to turn your attention to the 1980s. There were massacres at Evin prison, located around Tehran. The regime faced a conundrum, shall we say, a problem. They believed, given their religious background, that if they executed a virgin, she would automatically enter paradise. Because they wanted to prevent this, they ordered the guards to systematically grape these women before they slaughtered them. Think about that level of spiritual and physical depravity. Congratulations, mullahs. You've invented a theology so twisted it requires rape as foreplay to execution. Truly, truly innovative evil. It's a rare talent to be so repulsive that even Satan thinks you're probably overdoing it. So, you might be curious, who exactly were these girls? They weren't enemy soldiers. They were Iranian university students. They were teenagers caught with banned literature. They were Baha'i women who refused to renounce their faith. Bonus depravity, pregnant women and minors who were raped before execution too. Because why stop at virgins when you can blaspheme against life itself? This is the Iranian regime that these idiots, leftists, are defending. And if you think that the depravity stops at the prison, oh no, it's baked into the law. Under Article 1041 of Iran's Civil Code, girls, underlined girls, can legally marry at 13, boys at 15, but there's a little kicker in here because for some that's too long to wait. With daddy's permission and a friendly judge's nod, you can drop that age to basically whatever. Girls as young as 9 get married off every year in Iran. Thousands under 13 registered officially. And that's just the paperwork version. Who knows how many are that go unreported? Because nothing screams child protection like a court-approved pedophile union. Thousands of these marriages happen annually. Around 25 to 27,000 girls under 15 years of age in recent years, with 1,700 plus under 13 on average, leading straight to child motherhood, with 1,500 plus babies being born to mothers under 15 in some years. And the founding father of this regime, the Ayatollah Khomeini himself, spelled it out in his holy handbook, Tahrir al-Wasilah. No full intercourse until age 9 lunar years. But hey, touching, embracing, all those other things you can think of, and enjoyments with your childhood wife, totally okay before that. But if you go too far, too early, with 9 years old being considered the appropriate age, if you were to, say, engage in intercourse with a 6-year-old, sure, according to the Ayatollah, it is a sin, but certainly not, underline not, a crime under the penal code. Just so you guys know, I have a 6-year-old daughter. I will not allow her to travel in the vicinity of Iran anytime soon. But this is peak Islamic morality. Rape is only knotted if it crosses their arbitrary holy line. Otherwise, it's just foreplay to paradise. The UN and every human rights group calls this institutionalized child abuse and a violation of the rights of the child. But sure, go ahead, leftists. Keep telling yourself it's cultural nuance while girls get sold into legalized pedophilia. Classy export from the regime that lectures the world on virtue. But this is not ancient history. No. This is the DNA of the regime. Then we take a look at Mahsa Amini in 2022, beaten to death in a van because her hijab wasn't proper. The morality police, because nothing enforces virtue like skull-crushing a 22-year-old over a headscarf. It's peak piety, Nothing says I'm confident in my faith like being threatened by a stray lock of hair. Look at the hundreds of protesters who have been blinded, literally shot in the eyes with metal pellets because the regime knows that if people can see the truth, the mullahs are finished. They don't just blind you, they make sure you never unsee their cowardice. They don't just kill, no, they torture the survivors. They use what's called white torture, total sensory deprivation, to break the human mind. They execute minors, including hanging teenagers for crimes committed as children, because nothing screams justice like state-sponsored child murder. They carry out amputations and public floggings. This is the morality they export. And they don't keep it inside their borders. They are the world's largest venture capitalist for terror. They funded the AMIA bombings in Argentina, murdering 85 people in a Jewish community center and another one in 1992 and 1994, if memory serves me. Why? Well, they're Jewish. The Iranian mullahs are not fond of Jews. In fact, I would go so far to say that they hate them. They're not attacking an Israeli guard outpost. Oh no, they go after the soft Jewish targets on the other side of the world to satisfy their blood lust. Maybe they think they'll attain paradise like the virgins that they rape and then execute. Because nothing says resistance, like bombing kindergartners in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Real heroes of the revolution. That is, if your revolution requires blowing up a community center in Argentina, maybe your revolution is just a global temper tantrum with some C4 explosives. But hey, you know, they're Jewish. Adolf would be proud. They fuel the proxies that slaughtered 1,200 people on October 7th, from Buenos Aires to Tel Aviv to the streets of Tehran. The ink they use to sign their policies is human blood, like signing a deal with the devil. It's a global crime spree. They gun down dissidents in German restaurants. They blow up Jewish community centers in Argentina, like I just told you. They shoot down civilian airliners and then bulldoze the evidence before the bodies are even cold. They are so terrified of infiltration that they arrest scientists who are tracking the nearly extinct Iranian cheetah, only a few left on the planet, under espionage charges. And then the conservationists die mysteriously while in jail. Even the cheetahs aren't safe. Regime logic. If it runs faster than our lies, eliminate it. They kidnap journalists from the streets of Western capitals. They tried to assassinate dissidents in the United States, in New York City, the Saudi ambassador as well in Washington, foiled by the FBI, by the way. They very recently, when this war erupted, were successful in murdering a dissident in Canada. Bonus overseas hits, bomb plots against dissidents' rallies in Paris, assassinations in Sweden, Albania, Turkey, diplomats as hitmen. Because who needs embassies when you have death squads? This is but a short list of the regime's depravity. This is a regime that exports death as its primary commodity. The recharge we need isn't just about our own liberty and that of the Iranians. It's about the moral clarity to recognize a monster when it's staring us in the face. You cannot negotiate with a regime that views a woman's hair as a national security threat and a rape execution as religious duty. Negotiate? Sure. Right after we finish laughing at the idea that dialogue works with people who rape virgins to save their souls from heaven. That's what these morons in the West that have been taught to hate freedom and liberty defend. So next time someone defends this regime in front of you, you now have ammunition in your knowledge bank to use to confront them and against them. And by the way, one more bonus that I just thought of. These same idiots scream literal bloody murder when ICE protesters that were clearly interfering with the duties ICE was carrying out, one which tried to run one of the ICE officers over with her car, the other getting physical while carrying a loaded gun, you scream on social media about how evil ICE is, how awful Donald Trump is for trying to remove illegal aliens who, frankly, have committed a lot of crimes as who they are targeting. Yet 30,000 protesters are gunned down by the regime this year. And what do we have from you leftists? No acknowledgments, silence, nothing, nada. Not a peep for the value of the Iranian protesters' lives, just defense of the regime that committed the atrocity of 30,000 murders, machine gunning them down in the streets. These people, they're not anchored to truth and first principles. Their North Star is the destruction of the West and the values, those which created the environment that liberated the planet from toiling in the fields to feed families via knowledge and technology and incentives. It's a bizarre hobby to me, hating the very culture that gave you the smartphone you use to tweet your support for a 7th century death cult. We in America have the duty to speak for those who have been silenced in the mass graves of the 1988 Iranian massacre. So stop the excuses. Start looking at the receipts and reading them out to those people who still support the Iranian regime, who root for them to survive. Now, granted, they won't listen because they, my friends, are too ideologically captured. The good news is, people just outside of these groups just might. That is our goal. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Peace.